There's something quietly comforting about learning small, unexpected things when there's no pressure to remember them later. Facts that don't demand anything from you. They just exist, drifting by like soft thoughts while you settle into a more relaxed state of mind. So for the next little while, you don't need to focus too hard or try to memorize anything. Just let the information pass through, gently, the way background music does when you're half listening and fully comfortable. Here's something simple to start with. Your brain is constantly editing reality for you, even when you're wide awake. Every moment, your eyes send an overwhelming amount of visual data to your brain, far more than you could consciously process. So your brain quietly fills in gaps, smooths edges, and removes details it decides you don't need. That's why you can stare directly at your nose all day and barely notice it's there. Your brain knows it's not important and politely erases it from your awareness. In a way, you're living inside a carefully curated version of the world, custom-made just for comfort and efficiency. Time, which often feels rigid and unforgiving, is actually much more flexible in your mind than you might think. When you're bored or anxious, seconds stretch out and feel heavy. But when you're relaxed or engaged, time compresses. This isn't just a feeling. Your brain literally measures time differently, depending on emotional state. That means the calm you're feeling right now isn't just pleasant. It's actively changing how your mind experiences the passing minutes, making them softer and less sharp. Octopuses have 3 hearts, but what's more interesting is that 2 of them stop beating when the octopus swims. Swimming is so physically demanding for them that evolution decided it wasn't worth the effort. That's why octopuses prefer crawling along the ocean floor instead of gliding through open water. Even creatures with alien-like intelligence still choose the path of least resistance when they can. There's something quietly reassuring about that. The human body glows, very faintly, all the time. This isn't poetry or metaphor. It's real. Your cells produce tiny amounts of light as a byproduct of chemical reactions happening inside you every second. The glow is far too weak for human eyes to detect, but sensitive cameras can capture it. You are, quite literally, softly glowing in the dark, even when you're completely still. Most people assume plants are passive, silent life forms, but plants communicate constantly. When a leaf is damaged, it releases chemical signals into the air that nearby plants can detect. Those nearby plants then begin preparing their own defenses, producing bitter chemicals or toxins to discourage whatever caused the damage. It's not intelligence the way humans think of intelligence, but it's awareness, a quiet, patient awareness that operates on a different time scale than ours. Your sense of smell is deeply tied to memory in a way your other senses aren't. Smell signals bypass many of the brain's usual processing steps and head straight to areas involved in emotion and memory. That's why a single scent can suddenly pull you backward in time, bringing back a place or a moment you haven't thought about in years. Your brain keeps those memories tucked away, waiting for the right chemical key to unlock them. There's a reason rain feels calming to so many people. One explanation is evolutionary. For most of human history, rain meant safety. Predators hunted less. Fires were less likely. Food sources often became easier to find afterward. Even now, your nervous system may associate the sound of rain with a subtle sense of relief. Nothing urgent needs to happen right now. The world has slowed down. Bananas are technically berries, but strawberries aren't. Botanical classifications don't care about how fruit looks or tastes. They care about structure and development. Strawberries keep their seeds on the outside, which disqualifies them as berries. Bananas grow from a single flower with one ovary, which qualifies them. Nature has its own quiet logic, and it doesn't bother explaining itself. Your heartbeat subtly syncs with your breathing. When you inhale, your heart rate increases slightly. When you exhale, it slows down. This phenomenon is called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, and it's one of the reasons slow, steady breathing can calm you so effectively. You're not forcing your body to relax. You're reminding it of a rhythm it already knows. Wombats produce Q-shaped poop. This isn't a joke or exaggeration. The shape is caused by the unique elasticity of their intestines, which compresses waste into angular forms. The cubes don't roll away, which helps wombats mark territory more effectively. Even the strangest biological traits usually exist for very practical reasons. When you feel mentally exhausted, it's often not because your brain is out of energy. It's because certain neural circuits have been overused. Rest doesn't always mean sleep. Sometimes it means novelty, gentleness, or simply removing stimulation. That's why staring out a window or listening to a calm voice can feel surprisingly restorative. The color you perceive as purple doesn't exist as a single wavelength of light. Purple is something your brain invents when it sees red and blue light at the same time. It's a mental compromise, a solution to a sensory problem. Your brain creates entire experiences just to make sense of the information coming in. Antarctica is technically a desert. It receives very little precipitation each year, less than many of the world's hottest deserts. Most of its water is locked away as ice that fell thousands of years ago. Deserts aren't defined by heat. They're defined by dryness. Even the coldest places can be dry and silent. Your brain has a built-in negativity bias. It pays more attention to potential threats than positive experiences. This helped ancestors survive. But today, it often means your mind clings to worries longer than comforts. Knowing this doesn't magically erase anxiety, but it can soften it. That anxious thought isn't always a warning. Sometimes it's just an outdated survival reflex echoing quietly in the background. Honey never spoils. Jars of honey thousands of years old have been found in ancient tombs, still edible. Its low moisture content and natural acidity make it hostile to bacteria. Honey is food designed to last, created by insects that have been perfecting the process for millions of years. When astronauts return to Earth, they often say the planet looks fragile from space. Not because it's small, but because there are no visible borders, no lines dividing nations. Just a thin atmosphere wrapped around a blue and white sphere. That perspective changes people. Sometimes distance makes things clearer. Your body replaces most of its cells over time. You are not made of the same physical matter you were years ago. The continuity you feel, the sense of being the same person, comes from patterns, memories, and structure rather than material permanence. You are a process, not a fixed object. Some sounds, like soft humming or gentle white noise, can trigger a relaxation response because they resemble sounds heard in the womb. A steady, low-frequency rhythm signals safety to your nervous system. It's not nostalgia you're feeling. It's recognition. Sharks existed before trees. Long before forests covered land, sharks were already swimming through ancient oceans. They've survived multiple mass extinctions, quietly adapting while the world reshaped itself around them. Longevity often comes from flexibility rather than dominance. The brain doesn't distinguish very well between real experiences and vividly imagined ones. That's why visualization can be so powerful, and why calming imagery can genuinely reduce stress. When you imagine a quiet place, parts of your brain respond as if you're actually there. At any given moment, trillions of tiny reactions are happening inside you without your awareness. Enzymes folding, signals firing, cells repairing. You don't have to manage any of it. Your body knows how to take care of itself far better than you consciously ever could. And as these thoughts continue to drift by, there's no need to hold on to any single one. Let them pass. Let your mind stay loose and comfortable, knowing that learning doesn't always have to feel like effort. Sometimes it can feel like resting. It's interesting how the mind settles more deeply when there's nothing it needs to do. No decisions to make, no problems to solve. Just a steady stream of small ideas, drifting past like clouds you don't have to name. That's often when the most unexpected things feel the most comforting. Your brain is remarkably good at predicting the future, even though you rarely notice it happening. Every sound you hear, every word you read, your brain is already guessing what comes next before it actually arrives. When those predictions are correct, everything feels smooth and effortless. When they're wrong, you feel surprise. Comfort often comes from predictability, which is why familiar voices, routines, and even repeated facts can feel soothing rather than boring. There are more trees on Earth than stars in the Milky Way galaxy, at least based on our current estimates. Astronomers estimate there are around 100 to 400 billion stars in our galaxy, while ecologists estimate there are over 3 trillion trees on Earth. It's a reminder that wonder doesn't always require looking up. Sometimes it's rooted quietly beneath your feet. Your ears never stop listening, even when you're asleep. While your conscious awareness fades, your brain continues monitoring sound for anything unusual or threatening. That's why you can sleep through familiar noises, but wake instantly to something out of place. Silence, paradoxically, can sometimes feel louder than sound because your brain is waiting for something to happen. Butterflies remember being caterpillars. During metamorphosis, their bodies dissolve into a kind of biological soup before reorganizing into something entirely new. Despite this massive transformation, studies suggest they retain learned behaviors from their earlier life. Change doesn't always erase what came before. Sometimes it quietly carries it forward. Yawning is contagious, and not just among humans. Dogs, chimpanzees, and even some birds yawn in response to seeing others yawn. This behavior appears to be linked to empathy and social bonding. When you yawn because someone else did, it may be your brain sensing with theirs, aligning states of alertness without a word being spoken. The average cloud weighs over 1 million tons. It looks light and effortless, drifting slowly overhead, but it's made of countless tiny water droplets spread across a vast space. Weight doesn't always look heavy. Sometimes it floats. Your sense of taste is mostly smell. What you think of as flavor is actually a combination of taste, scent, texture, and temperature. That's why food seems bland when your nose is blocked. Taste isn't a single sense. It's a collaboration. There's a quiet reason why soft lighting feels more relaxing than bright overhead lights. Harsh lighting can signal alertness and activity to your brain, while warmer, dimmer light signals that it's safe to slow down. Long before artificial bulbs existed, light followed a predictable rhythm. Your nervous system still responds to it. Some metals explode in water. Sodium and potassium react violently when they come into contact with moisture, releasing energy almost instantly. It's strange to think that something solid and stable looking can hide so much reactivity inside. Calm surfaces can still hold incredible power. Your heart doesn't beat like a metronome. The time between each beat constantly changes, adapting to breathing, movement, and emotional state. A perfectly regular heartbeat would actually be a sign of trouble. Health lives in variation. There are microscopic organisms living on your eyelashes. Tiny mites, invisible to the naked eye, spend their entire lives there, feeding on oils and shedding without causing harm. They've been with humans for as long as humans have existed. Even in stillness, you are not alone. The sound of your own voice doesn't sound the same to others because when you speak, you hear it through both air and bone. Bone conduction deepens the sound, making your voice seem richer to you than it does to anyone else. The voice you think of as yours is a private experience. Some memories aren't stored in one place in the brain. They're distributed across networks. That means remembering something isn't like opening a file. It's more like recreating a pattern. Each time you remember, the memory subtly changes. Even the past isn't perfectly still. Sea otters hold hands while sleeping so they don't drift apart. It's not a poetic exaggeration. It's a practical solution to a real problem. But it also happens to look like affection. Sometimes care and function overlap beautifully. Your brain uses a surprising amount of energy. Despite making up only a small percentage of your body weight, it consumes roughly 20% of your energy at rest. Thinking is not free. Rest is earned. There's a phenomenon where people feel calmer in libraries even when they aren't reading. The quiet, shared focus, and absence of urgency create an atmosphere of collective calm. Spaces can influence mood just as much as thoughts. A day on Venus is longer than a year on Venus. The planet rotates so slowly on its axis that it completes an orbit around the Sun faster than it completes one full rotation. Time behaves differently depending on where you are, not just how you feel. Your body knows how to relax, but it often needs permission. Slow breathing, gentle sounds, and steady pacing all serve as cues. You're not teaching your body something new. You're reminding it of something old. The human brain can generate new neurons even in adulthood. For a long time, scientists believed this wasn't possible. Now we know certain areas of the brain continue forming new connections throughout life. Change doesn't stop when growth slows. It just becomes quieter. Whales have culture. Different pods have distinct songs, hunting strategies, and behaviors passed down through generations. Culture isn't exclusive to humans. It emerges wherever learning and memory meet community. When you close your eyes, your brain doesn't shut off visual processing. It just turns inward. That's why imagery and imagination can feel vivid in darkness. Vision doesn't require light. It requires interpretation. There are places on Earth where gravity is slightly weaker or stronger due to variations in the planet's shape and density. You weigh a tiny bit less or more depending on where you stand. The ground beneath you subtly shapes your experience. Your nervous system can't be calm and tense at the same time. Relaxation and stress use different pathways. Even small acts of calm, like listening or breathing slowly, shift the balance. Some people experience a gentle sense of comfort from repetitive information because it reduces uncertainty. Familiar patterns signal safety. Your brain likes knowing what comes next. At night, your mind naturally becomes more associative and less linear. Thoughts drift. Connections loosen. This isn't a loss of control. It's a different mode of thinking, one that favors creativity and reflection over precision. As you listen, there's nothing you need to take with you. These ideas can come and go without leaving a trace. Let them do what they do best. Enter softly. Exit quietly. As the mind grows more relaxed, it becomes less interested in sharp edges and more drawn to gentle connections. Thoughts don't need to arrive fully formed. They can drift in slowly, settle for a moment, and then drift away again. There's comfort in that looseness, in knowing nothing here demands effort or urgency. Your body has its own internal clock, and it's not just one clock. Nearly every cell follows a daily rhythm, responding to cycles of light and darkness. These rhythms influence energy, mood, temperature, and even how efficiently your body repairs itself. When things feel calm and predictable, these tiny clocks stay in sync. When life becomes noisy or rushed, they fall slightly out of step. Rest helps bring them back together. There's a reason slow movements feel calming to watch. When you observe something moving gently, your brain mirrors that pace internally. This is why watching fish swim, clouds drift, or leaves sway can quiet mental chatter. Your nervous system responds not just to what you do, but to what you witness. Some languages don't use words for left and right. Instead, they rely entirely on cardinal directions like north, south, east, and west. Speakers of these languages maintain a constant awareness of orientation, even indoors or in unfamiliar places. Their sense of direction becomes almost instinctive. The way we describe the world quietly shapes how we experience it. The brain releases tiny amounts of dopamine when you learn something new, even if it's small and seemingly unimportant. This is part of what makes random facts feel satisfying. That gentle sense of, oh, interesting, is a reward signal, encouraging curiosity without pressure. Sloths can take up to a month to digest a single meal. Their metabolism is incredibly slow, conserving energy to an extreme degree. In a world that often celebrates speed, sloths survive by doing the opposite. Slowly, steadily, and without hurry. Your eyes blink more often when you're thinking than when you're reading or watching something engaging. Blinking briefly cuts off visual input, giving the brain tiny breaks to process information. Even this small reflex is designed to manage mental load. There's a faint humming sound known as the Earth's hum, detectable only by sensitive instruments. It's created by ocean waves interacting with the seafloor and atmosphere. The planet is constantly vibrating, quietly and steadily, even when everything feels still. When you listen to a calm voice, parts of your brain associated with social connection activate. This can create a subtle feeling of being accompanied, even if you're physically alone. Humans are wired to find safety in gentle communication. Penguins propose with pebbles. In some species, a penguin will search carefully for a smooth stone and offer it to a potential mate. If accepted, the pebble becomes part of the nest. It's a small gesture, but one that carries intention. Your brain filters out most of what you see. If it didn't, the world would be unbearably overwhelming. Instead, it prioritizes contrast, movement, and novelty. Calm environments feel restful partly because they give your brain less to manage. The scent of freshly cut grass comes from chemicals released by plants when they're damaged. It's essentially a distress signal. Humans happen to find it pleasant, even though it originates from plant injury. Nature doesn't assign meaning the way we do. It simply reacts. There are tiny muscles attached to each hair on your body. When they contract, the hair stands up, creating goosebumps. This reflex once helped trap heat or make animals appear larger. Today, it still responds to cold or emotion, even though its original purpose is mostly obsolete. Some people feel more alert at night because their circadian rhythm runs slightly later than average. This variation has always existed. In early human groups, night-oriented individuals may have helped keep watch while others slept. Differences often exist for quiet reasons. Your stomach has its own nervous system, sometimes called the second brain. It contains millions of neurons and communicates constantly with your brain through the vagus nerve. This connection influences mood, stress, and intuition. Calm digestion often supports a calmer mind. In space, astronauts can grow slightly taller because the lack of gravity allows the spine to decompress. Once back on Earth, gravity gently presses everything back into place. Even your height isn't fixed. It responds to your environment. Some sounds feel soothing because they lack sudden changes. Consistent tones and gentle rhythms don't trigger alert responses in the brain. They create a sense of continuity, which the nervous system associates with safety. There's a type of cloud called noctilucent clouds that glow faintly at night. They form very high in the atmosphere and reflect sunlight long after the sun has dipped below the horizon. Even darkness can hold light, quietly and briefly. Your brain processes music in multiple areas at once. Rhythm, melody, emotion, and memory all activate together. This is why music can feel immersive and transporting. It doesn't speak to just one part of you. The feeling of comfort often comes from predictability combined with softness. A steady voice, familiar pacing, and gentle ideas create an environment where your mind doesn't need to stay alert. It can simply exist. Bees can recognize human faces. They don't see faces the way we do, but they learn patterns of features. Even small brains are capable of surprising forms of recognition. Your sense of balance relies on fluid moving inside your inner ear. When you spin, that fluid keeps moving even after you stop, creating the sensation of dizziness. Balance is not static. It's constantly being adjusted. Some people find math or logic calming because it creates clear boundaries and rules. Others find stories or imagery more soothing. There's no single path to calm. different minds settle in different ways. The moon is slowly drifting away from Earth, about the rate your fingernails grow. This gradual movement affects tides, and over very long periods, the length of days. Even familiar celestial bodies are not fixed in place. Your brain can enter a relaxed state, even while listening attentively. Focus doesn't always mean tension. Gentle attention can coexist with rest. At night, sounds often seem louder because there's less background noise. The world hasn't changed. Your perception has. Quiet amplifies detail. There's nothing you need to remember from this. Nothing to carry forward. These thoughts are meant to pass through, leaving behind a soft sense of ease and quiet curiosity. And as your breathing stays steady and your body remains supported, the mind can continue drifting, open and unburdened, ready for whatever gentle thought comes next. As relaxation deepens, the mind becomes less interested in direction and more comfortable with wandering. Thoughts don't have to arrive in order. They can overlap, soften, and fade without needing to resolve into anything definite. There's a quiet relief in letting curiosity exist without expectation. Your brain is constantly searching for patterns, even in randomness. This tendency is called apophenia. It's why people see shapes in clouds or faces in everyday objects. Pattern recognition helped humans survive, but it also gives the mind something gentle to do when it's at rest. Not everything needs to make sense. Sometimes it just needs to feel familiar. There's a reason fireplaces feel calming, even on screens. The movement of flames follows patterns that are neither fully predictable nor chaotic. This balance holds attention without demanding it. The brain stays engaged but not alert. It's a comfortable middle ground. Dolphins sleep with one half of their brain at a time. While one hemisphere rests, the other remains alert enough to breathe and watch for danger. Even in rest, there's adaptability. Nature rarely chooses extremes when balance will do. Your sense of touch develops earlier than your other senses. Before you could see or hear clearly, you could feel. This may be why soft textures and gentle pressure feel so reassuring. They speak to one of the oldest parts of your sensory experience. There are sounds too low for humans to hear, called infrasound. Elephants use it to communicate over long distances, sending vibrations through the ground. Some natural environments produce infrasound as well, from ocean waves to distant storms. You might not hear it, but your body can sometimes sense it. The human body is slightly asymmetrical. One lung is smaller than the other to make room for the heart. One side of the brain processes language more actively. Perfect symmetry isn't the goal. Function is. Your brain has a default mode network that becomes active when you're not focused on a task. This network is associated with daydreaming, reflection, and gentle self-awareness. It's active right now, quietly stitching together thoughts without effort. There's a species of jellyfish that can revert to its juvenile form after reaching adulthood, effectively restarting its life cycle. In theory, it doesn't have to die of old age. Renewal doesn't always mean moving forward. Sometimes it means returning. Warm drinks feel comforting partly because warmth signals safety to the nervous system. In early life, warmth meant closeness and protection. Even now, temperature can influence emotion. The brain releases oxytocin during moments of calm social connection, even subtle ones. Listening to a friendly voice, feeling understood, or simply sensing gentle presence can trigger it. Connection doesn't always require interaction. Your pupils change size not just in response to light, but also emotion. Interest, relaxation, and attraction can all subtly alter them. The eyes reflect more than vision. Snow absorbs sound. When it falls, the world often feels quieter because the snowflakes trap vibrations. Silence isn't always the absence of noise. Sometimes it's a softening of it. There are taste receptors in places other than your tongue, including your gut and lungs. Taste isn't just about flavor. It's a signaling system that helps regulate digestion and breathing. Some ancient trees have root systems that connect underground with fungi, forming vast networks that share nutrients and information. This is sometimes called the wood wide web. Forests aren't collections of individuals, they're communities. Your breathing naturally slows when you feel safe. You don't have to control it consciously. Safety cues do the work for you. Calm environments invite calm responses. In ancient times, night skies were far brighter with stars than they are today. Light pollution has dimmed much of that view. Still, the stars haven't gone anywhere. They're just harder to see. The human brain is more creative when slightly tired. As inhibition decreases, unusual connections form more easily. This is why ideas often appear late at night, when the mind loosens its grip. Some people feel calmer when listening to information because it gives the mind a gentle anchor, something to rest against. It doesn't have to be important. It just has to be steady. The scent of vanilla has been shown to reduce startle responses in some studies. Simple smells can have measurable effects on the nervous system. Rivers don't take the shortest path to the ocean. They take the path of least resistance. Over time, this creates curves and bends. Efficiency often looks indirect. Your memory for emotional experiences tends to outlast memory for details. You may forget words, but remember how something made you feel. That's why atmosphere matters. There's a brief moment of silence when you turn off a noisy appliance and the room settles. That pause often feels deeper than silence itself. Transitions carry weight. Some birds can sleep while flying during long migrations, resting parts of their brain in turns. Movement and rest aren't always opposites. The body repairs itself more efficiently during periods of deep relaxation. Muscles release tension. Cells focus on maintenance. Rest is active in its own way. Your perception of time tends to slow when you're calm and speed up when you're stressed. Right now, time doesn't need to rush. There's no goal here, no conclusion to reach. These thoughts can keep drifting like a quiet current beneath the surface of awareness. And as the mind continues to soften, there's space for comfort without explanation. Just a gentle sense of being here, supported and unhurried. As everything continues to slow, thoughts no longer need to arrive with clarity or purpose. They can blur slightly at the edges, becoming softer, quieter, less demanding. This is often where the mind feels most at ease, when it isn't trying to hold on to anything at all. Your body temperature naturally drops a little as relaxation deepens. This shift helps signal the brain that it's safe to rest. You don't have to notice it happening. It happens on its own, like a background process quietly doing its work. There's a subtle comfort in knowing that much of the world operates without your attention. Tides move, clocks tick, plants grow, and stars burn steadily, whether or not anyone is watching. You're allowed to rest because the world doesn't rely on your vigilance. Some sounds feel comforting because they are continuous rather than abrupt. A fan, distant traffic, soft rain. These sounds tell the brain that nothing sudden is approaching. Continuity feels safe. Your brain naturally shifts towards slower brainwaves as you relax. This transition supports imagination, memory blending, and gentle drifting. It's a state where thoughts feel less separate and more fluid. Cats spend a large portion of their lives sleeping, not because they're lazy, but because rest supports their alertness and health. Rest isn't the absence of purpose. It's part of balance. There are places in the ocean where sound travels farther than anywhere else, carried by layers of water that guide vibrations across thousands of miles. Even whispers can travel great distances under the right conditions. Your shoulders tend to hold tension without you realizing it. As awareness softens, they often settle downward naturally. The body knows how to release when given time. The brain prefers gentle curves over sharp angles. This preference shows up in art, architecture, and nature. Curves suggest flow. Sharpness suggests caution. Your sense of comfort increases when expectations are met gently rather than dramatically. Predictable pacing, steady rhythm, and familiar patterns all reduce cognitive load. Some memories don't surface as images or words, but as sensations, a feeling of warmth, a sense of safety. These memories don't need details to be real. The night sky appears darker in places far from artificial light, but it's actually filled with faint glow from distant stars and galaxies. Darkness is rarely empty. Your heartbeat continues its quiet work without instruction. Even now, it adjusts to your breathing, your posture, your state of mind. It doesn't need guidance. There are animals that navigate using Earth's magnetic field, sensing direction through tiny particles in their bodies. Orientation can exist without conscious thought. The brain's tendency to wander increases as alertness decreases. This isn't distraction. It's a shift into a more associative mode of thinking. Soft repetition can be calming because it reduces novelty. When the brain knows what's coming, it relaxes its guard. You don't need to follow every idea. Some can pass unnoticed, like thoughts half remembered in a dream. The body repairs small amounts of wear and tear constantly. Skin cells renew. Muscles adjust. Balance is maintained quietly. Gentle curiosity is different from effortful thinking. It doesn't push. It simply notices. The sound of your breathing may feel more noticeable now, not because it's louder, but because everything else has softened. There's no rush for the next moment to arrive. The present is enough. Your mind doesn't need to stay alert to be aware. Awareness can exist without tension. Some people describe comfort as the absence of urgency. Nothing needs immediate attention. Nothing needs solving. Even silence has texture. It isn't flat. It breathes. The brain's need for meaning relaxes as comfort increases. Not everything has to connect. Your body rests best when it feels supported, physically and mentally. Thoughts may become fragmented now. That's natural. It's a sign of letting go. The world continues its steady rhythm outside of awareness. You're free to drift inward. Nothing here needs to be remembered. Nothing needs to be carried forward. Just this quiet moment, unfolding gently, exactly as it should. And as the stream of thoughts thins and softens, there's space for stillness. A calm, neutral ease where the mind doesn't need to wander anymore, and the body doesn't need to hold itself up. Everything can settle. As everything continues to quiet down, there's less need for thoughts to form at all. The mind doesn't have to chase ideas or hold on to meaning. It can simply rest in the space between them, where nothing asks to be understood. Your breathing finds its own rhythm when you stop paying attention to it. In and out, slow and unforced. The body has been doing this for you your entire life, and it doesn't need reminders. It knows exactly what to do. There's a gentle comfort in knowing that even while you rest, your body continues its quiet work. Muscles loosen, signals soften. Systems that were busy earlier in the day gradually slow to a pace that feels sustainable and kind. Thoughts may still appear, but they don't need to finish themselves. They can trail off midway, dissolving before they ever become complete. Nothing is lost when that happens. This is how the mind naturally unwinds. The space around you doesn't demand anything. The room holds still. The air remains patient. Nothing changes unless it needs to. Your awareness can narrow now. Not in effort, but in ease. Less outward, more inward, like settling deeper into a comfortable position without moving at all. There's no need to listen closely anymore. Even sound can become distant, blending into a soft background presence rather than something to follow. Meaning fades. Tone remains. The day has already done what it needed to do. Whatever didn't get finished doesn't belong to this moment. This moment isn't for completion. It's for rest. Your body recognizes this state. It's familiar. You've been here before, in the quiet moments just before sleep, when thoughts lose their edges and time stops asking questions. Nothing needs to be remembered from here on. Nothing needs to be held. The mind can empty itself naturally, the way water settles when left undisturbed. If images appear, they don't need clarity. If memories surface, they don't need context. Everything can stay soft, unfinished, and gentle. The world outside continues its steady rhythm without interruption. You don't have to keep watch. You don't have to stay alert. Everything is already being taken care of. Your body becomes heavier, not with effort, but with comfort. Supported, grounded, safe enough to let go. Awareness thins now, like a light dimming slowly rather than turning off. There's no sharp transition, just a gradual fading. And in this quiet, there's nothing left to do, nothing left to think, nothing left to follow. Just rest.